so many things that could have killed this company. And I was like, you're a fucking venture capitalist. Take a venture with your capital. You won't regret this. And so there's going to be a ton of pressure. And you have to tell yourself this is life or death, because it is. As a start, you are never safe. I've done crazy shit to get people to answer stuff. The first universal truth that you need to accept is that nobody gives a shit. Whoa, wow, that got quiet.
Nice. So we have like the last session for today. Then there is gonna be a party at Stanford that they are gonna go.
Cool.
So yeah, for the speaker this session we have like AK. She has like an amazing founding story. So she's gonna tell you a little bit about her background, what like she's doing with her company, and then of course we have time for the Q&A. So I'm pretty sure that you have like a lot of questions to ask.
Cool. No pressure. Great to see everybody. My name is AK Cushman. I am the co-founder and CEO of ShiftOS. We are building workforce management agents. My founding story to get here is a little wild, but grew up in Detroit. Who loves Detroit? Hands up. Come on. All right, cool. So yeah, grew up in Detroit. My parents were entrepreneurs in real estate, and so I spent most of my childhood helping them with real estate. And then the 2008 financial crisis happened, which some of you in the room are probably too young to remember, but it was very bad. So the banks collapsed that we worked with, and we were homeless, lost it all. Summer going into high school. So was homeless all of high school, went to 5 different high schools, moved around. My parents were just getting back on their feet. They graduated from college when I was graduating from high school. And so they were like, if you do not want this to happen to you, you need to pick a recession-proof job, which, as you know, I'm not in right now. So we'll get there. I ended up enlisting in the Navy as a combat medic to pay for med school. And I spent 5 years in Washington, D.C., working on the cancer side of things, and then exec med, which is primary care, but for senators, congressmen, Supreme Court justices, which was a very unique experience and a very interesting patient demographic to work with. And my whole plan was, when I get out of the Navy, I'm gonna go to med school, it's gonna be free, paid my time in service. But during this time, while I was in the military, I ended up buying an apartment complex, learned to code, and was doing websites on WordPress, CSS, HTML. So I'm really aging myself here. And I just always had like this kind of entrepreneurial bug. And I got a call as I was getting out of the military from Deloitte. And I had no idea about management consulting. And they were like, hey, we need someone with a very unique skill set that has cancer experience, nursing license, and can work for the associate director of the National Cancer Institute. And so they were like, your background fits, but you need an IT degree. And I was like, that's perfect. I'm almost done with my IT degree. I did not have a degree in IT, nor was I enrolled in an IT program. And so I ended up interviewing, getting the position, and they were like, your IT degree needs to be done like by the time you start in 3 months. And I was like, no problem. And so I was literally in my transition getting out of the Navy. I was enrolled at American University in DC. And I was like, can I test out of a bunch of these IT classes? And they were like, no. So I had to call around. I found a school in Salt Lake City, Utah that would let me test out of classes if I did all the coursework, the midterms, and the finals. So I did 88 credits in 3 months and can talk to you all about mesh topology if you're interested. But I worked with the engineering teams, and I will not forget my first day at the NCI&H working with engineers as a product manager, and they were like, we hate PMs. And I was like, perfect. Why? And so I had a great experience there. When I left, it was on very good terms. The associate director ended up being one of our first checks in. But at this point, like, I'd given up on med school. I'd gotten out of the Navy during the height of COVID-19. I was like, I'm not going to be a nurse on the civilian side. It sucks. And I just was focused on making money and growing my career. So while I was at the NCI&A working on Moonshot, we churned from working with IBM Watson Health. Does anyone know what happened with them? Well, it was very bad. They said that their AI was reading cancer scans because this is pre-ChatGPT, and it was not. It was very inaccurate. So I sent them a very long, detailed letter of my opinions on how they could fix it, what they were doing wrong with their data delivery process, and I just CC'd a bunch of their leadership because I really thought highly of myself. And I expected them to not answer or to be like, fuck you. But instead, they gave me the job offer of a lifetime. And so here I am, 25 years old, high flying, pulling in a lot of cash, and was making some crazy decisions. So we were like automating database delivery and working on that. And I really just cared about making money and learning as much as I could. And I did not care about being a healthcare provider anymore, or that our healthcare system was fundamentally fucked. So then, as I'm at IBM Watson going through this, I was there for about 1.5 years, and my mom got diagnosed with astrocytoma, which is a very rare form of brain cancer in the glial family. So it's not, the prognosis is usually quite poor. But I was super lucky. I had great connections at the NCI, and so we were able to get her into a top neuro-oncology surgeon, and they worked on her for 15 hours. And I'm happy to report that she is fine. But it sent me for a little bit of a spiral, and so I spent some time thinking, how did this happen? They missed her diagnosis. It was slow growing for almost 15 years. She was misdiagnosed with behavioral health, mental health problems. They thought she had schizodepressive, bipolar manic. I went back through all of her healthcare records. Her provider had never really spent more than 15 minutes FaceTime with her. Having been a clinician working in cancer, I felt an immense sense of guilt. And I was like, nobody should be in this position, because you're working 12 hours a day in clinic, you're spending 2-3 hours a day charting afterwards, you're taking care of joint commission, supply ordering. You're not incentivized to care about the patient. And so that really affected me personally. And so I spent some time, I took a leave of absence from Watson, and I liquidated my life savings and sold my car, and I got some kids together from UT Austin and some kids from Stanford that were working on research projects. And I was like, let's look at some public hospital P&Ls, because my hypothesis is that if we pay healthcare providers more, that they will stay, and we can incentivize new people to become healthcare providers. Because the truth is like becoming I had wanted to be a rural medicine pediatrician and do Doctors Without Borders for 6 months of the year. Rural medicine pediatricians in the US make about $70,000 a year, and to do Doctors Without Borders for 6 months of the year costs about $60,000. So if you can do math, I'd be netting about $10K a year, which is not worth it for anybody, right? And so it's nice to think, hey, if they pay them more, they'll stay, and people want to become healthcare providers, but the money has to come from somewhere. So we looked at a bunch of the hospital P&Ls, and for healthcare systems, a good profit margin for them is 2 to 3%. So we were like, okay, what would have to happen here? We'd have to stop using traditional staffing agencies. We'd have to replace the existing infrastructure. My hypothesis, again, is like none of the non-clinical people that don't interact with patients need to exist. Like their jobs are better done by computers. And so I went down this rabbit hole, really, 3 months of research, and was like, I think that this needs to happen, and I think that I can build this. It's going to require a lot of data and a lot of money, and I'm going to need someone to do it. So called my best friend from childhood, who I met in high school number 4, who had lost her dad to colon cancer and had spent 6 years as a pharmacy technician at CVS, started pharmacy school, got into pharmacy school, and then CVS was like, we literally can't lose you, we need you. And so she went back working on technician training programs, and then she was in tech working at Evolent Health. So I called her and I was like, hey, you should come work on this with me and quit your job. And she was like, have you lost your fucking mind? Like, we were finally making money. We were finally not poor. Like, no way. And so I was like, okay, well, just work on this with me part-time for a little bit. And then that's just, how it starts. So everyone can say hi to Leanne. Where'd she go? She's in the back. She's here. That's my co-founder. So one of the things we wanted to eliminate was, the traditional staffing dependency. But we just had this huge, audacious mission of like, how do we rebuild the entirety of healthcare infrastructure? So we were like, we need a lot of data to do that. The staffing model got us great data, got us great insights, great partnerships. So we built a Uber for pharmacy staffing platform that's still running today. It's profitable. There's 2 people on it.
Following to learn clinical outcomes or scheduling surgeries, for example, being more integrated into the actual operations of the hospital itself.
Right. So at that point, like when we talk about those things that are going to expand, why we've built what we built and the way we built it is that we're already in the hospital, right? So like we're already deployed at New York Presbyterian. If we identify that they have a gap, it's much easier to be like, let's entrench ourselves here. Like, let's entrench ourselves there. One of the things we are talking about with one of the healthcare systems is predictive nurse scheduling, right? For ICU units, you have to take into account how long a nurse spends bedside to know how much staffing you need. But what's great is that because of the CARES Act that happened, Epic is forced and Cerner, they're all forced to integrate. Patients have a right, or the hospitals have a right to their data. And so they use these EHR EMR systems that have caseloads with time constraints. You get access now. This wasn't possible 5 years ago. It was really hard, but now, like, let's say that's how it starts, right? Like, we start working with the nursing units. We're going to do predictive staffing and scheduling. We integrate with Epic, which is not that hard to do now that they're forced to do it. And so it just entrenches from there. So I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about that from like a tiny level. But I would also say that, like, Cerner got bought by Oracle. So there's like 2-3 big EHR EMR systems in the United States. Epic is one of them. They're very famous. Judy is still running the company. She's 86 years old. They've taken no outside capital. She's about to step down. And I think that the fall of Epic will happen because Judy is leaving. And Cerner got bought by Oracle. And since their acquisition, I think a year ago, they've lost 75% of their healthcare customers. So I think that market is really just exploding, and that I don't know that we'll take on EHR EMR. I hope not, because it sounds like a bitch. Justin, I'll add it into linear. But yeah, someone else will do it, and then the integration part is not what's difficult to do now that the healthcare systems, that's been passed by law, they have to integrate. So, okay.
It's completely different. So do you think that, maybe you mentioned it, I'm sorry, but it sounds like with all the scheduling tool and workforce management tool they are building, all the scheduling is going to be much easier. So by consequence, all the operations, surgeries, and so on, whatever it is going to be much faster also. So the patient eventually would have maybe to wait less for a surgery or whatever it is. Do you think is the case?
Yeah, that's the ideal, right? Is that your clinician is not spending 20, 30 minutes a day calling people to figure out who can come in if someone's called off. And so that time gets spent on clinical tasks, which is revenue generating activities for the healthcare system, but also obviously it leads to better patient outcomes. Not yet, but we're tracking it now. We have a hypothesis, we've done like predictions on where we think that time and that like where we think less medication errors might happen if we deploy the scheduling for pharmacies, right? And so we have our guesses on that. But while we're in these first 3 months of deploying with our first couple of customers, we're collecting data along the way, and then we will publish some white papers, which we're collecting metrics for. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
What is the best way to find the right people to work with? Since I really like your mentality.
Again, hiring is really hard. So are you talking about from a co-founder standpoint, or are you talking about for talent? So your founding team. Yeah, it's gonna suck. So no one gives a shit about you. No one is gonna think what you're doing is that cool or that novel. And there's a million people like you, especially here in Silicon Valley. Everybody is hiring, and they're all wanting top talent. And everyone is gonna have more resources than you, and more money than you, and more hype than you. It is like in the 0.001% chance that you are the next Cursor or Lovable or whatever, and that they can recognize that immediately. And so you have to identify people, take a great guess on their background, right? Outreach to them, and you have a shot to sell them. And so when I find talent, I try to do these long dragged out interviews at random spots. I've done them at bars, I've done them at cafes. I like to ask different types of questions. Like when I ask for references, I usually like to ask, hey, I'm calling you back in 6 months from now and I'm telling you that I fired them. Why? And see what the reference says. I like to ask questions about how they think about life. I ask controversial questions about politics, religion, social opinions. It's not that I want to hear that these people, they're like, I'm super alt-right and I go on 4chan every night and bully people, but I want to hear that they have takes that are different, that they're curious. I want to hear that they have had problems before. I like to ask them in their last company, what is something that they were super frustrated with? And I also like to know people's origin stories because mine is so big in this company. I usually ask people like, how did you end up doing what you're doing right now? Why'd you answer me? Why was this interesting to you? Like, did you think you were going to be doing this? What's your family like? I love learning about people's families. I love asking for a sibling or something as a reference. That's it. Siblings to me are a great reference because no matter how awesome their sibling is, sibling rivalry goes so deep they just can't help themselves but take the chance to dog on them if they can. They'll be like, yeah, like Nick's really great and he's like super hardworking and he's super smart, but like, yeah, I mean, like he's, you know, kind of a perfectionist and I don't know, like I'm kind of better than him. You're like, and you can pull stuff from that, you know? So yeah, I also like to hear what people want with their life in the next 40 years. And a huge red flag for me is if they're like, I want to be working for you at your company and to be the CTO. And I want to just do this for the rest of my life. And my whole dream I was growing up was like, I'm going to do AI scheduling. Like, yeah, just super generic, right? Like, I asked them if they had $1 billion exit, what they would be working on. And Tripp told me, he's like, I'd still be coding. I don't know what, but something different, I guess. And I was like, incredible, incredible. I like to find out their hobbies. Ideally, they have none. That's serious. What do you mean? If they have hobbies, they're not working. Yeah, work should be their hobby. Work should be their hobbies.
I mean, like, hobbies can help you a lot,
Sure.
especially if it's sports and music. It's very related.
To each their own. I used to have engineers that had a ton of hobbies. They played ice hockey. They went to EDM festivals. They're not here.
What do you think are the biggest threats and the biggest opportunities for your business?
The biggest threat is that you don't move quickly enough, right? Like, there are always new startups being funded. YC's churning out like a fucking million of them a quarter now. I don't know how many in their batch. They're doing like over 1,000 a year, right? Something like that. Like something insane. Your idea can't be protected. So just know that. Whatever idea you have, if it's good, someone's going to rip it off. So just let that go. The threat is that you get burned out as a founder, that you don't prioritize your time correctly, that you get distracted by the wrong things. And then there's threats that can happen. So you have to have that, like, the way that you win, the way that I win, the way that anyone wins, is like, that can't set you back. Like, you just literally have to keep going. And you're going to hear that advice all the time, but it is so true. There are so many things that could have killed this company. There are so many things that should have killed this company. We had a term sheet pulled during our very first seed raise. We had a CTO that we found on Reddit who we were working with, and he took a job at a Series A startup. There was a portco of this VC fund that was offering us a term sheet. And I will tell you right now, if you have a term sheet pulled during a round, you are fucked. If someone pulls the term sheet, you are absolutely fucked. Because every investor gets spooked and they all go away. And so we could have died then, absolutely, like we should have died. And then we just decided to keep going and keep going and keep going. And then we were able to land a pretty big contract, which we couldn't even afford to service. And I called one of the investors from that, and I was like, you're a fucking venture capitalist. Take a venture with your capital. You won't regret this. Please give us this money. I need it right now. And he was like, okay. I pulled his phone number off his email signature. I'd not talked to him on the phone previously. And I was like, I need your money right now or my company's gonna die. And he was like, this is not compelling. And I was like, I will make it compelling. And so you just have to just keep getting creative. Just like anything you can do until you've exhausted all options. And like I tell employees this too, like think of your most precious thing in life, another life form, your dog, your cat, your mom, your dad, your brother. Someone has a gun to their head and they're gonna kill them unless you figure out how to build a dishwasher and all the parts are in front of you and no manual. You will figure out how the fuck to build that dishwasher. Like you literally will. Under pressure, you will figure it out. And so there's going to be a ton of pressure and you have to tell yourself this is life or death because it is. As a start, you are never safe. Like until your company has tons and tons and tons of money in the bank and tons of runway and you're, Series D, post IPO, shit's going great, you're never safe. So you can be flying high, but you there's always the threat of losing it. And I think as a founder, you really have to prioritize your time and make sure that you don't get burned out and don't spend time on the wrong things. Like there's gonna be so many events too. You guys move to Silicon Valley, you're gonna be invited to an event every fucking day. You could eat for free every day and be around VCs every day and be with advisors every day and be taking a trip every fucking weekend. And you have to have the power to say no and decide what's gonna be worth it or not.
And the biggest opportunities?
The biggest opportunities for our company specifically, like what do I think is gonna create those? Things like this, you all work for me now. Did he tell you that?
Can you talk a little bit about the tech stuff and
I mean, we use Claude primarily. The tech stack is not that complex, really. It's just the way that we've built it. And
Who is about the data part? Did you say that the data that you are collecting as you deploy to different customers and partners
sure.
are a unique advantage?
I think it's a unique advantage. Like the data that we collect, we give them actionable insights from that. So like they can see, if you're doing your scheduling right now on Excel sheets, you don't know who's calling off the most, who's swapping shifts the most. You don't know where you have retention problems, where you have leakage. These are like, Holly can also act as like a data analyst for them, right? And she can analyze where these call-offs are happening, where they have retention problems, where they have the most turnover, where we are having burnout. And that is measurable for these enterprise organizations, and it's valuable information for them. And so Holly for one enterprise doesn't look the same for like Holly at Stanford doesn't look the same as Holly at Cornell. And their data is proprietary to them, and it's unique to them, and it gives them a lot of, it gives them a peace of mind, and it gives them things that they can do to try to change some of these staff problems. Whereas right now, like again, they're doing scheduling manually. If they have a clinician doing it, that person's not also a data analyst. They're not going to sit there and figure that out. So the ROI is something that we can demonstrate for them, but the data does not go back to us. Like we don't pool everybody's data together to the other. No, but she gets smarter over time with each organization.
Does she learn on clinical outcomes only?
No.
If a certain composition of a team improves their clinical outcomes?
No, not right now. She doesn't do anything with patient data. She doesn't do anything with clinical outcomes. But obviously one of our working hypotheses is that if you have less people quitting, less people doing call-offs, less people churning, you're retaining your staff, we can eliminate some of the costs and the manual burdens for them and replace their existing infrastructure, especially if it's one of these legacy vendors that they pay an insane amount for, then that money can go back in the budget to help retain providers. And we can show them that data where, hey, you put this money back in the budget to pay your providers more. This is going to lead to better retention. We know this. We can show you some of these models and forecasting around call-offs and retention problems. It's a long play on that, but nothing with technical clinical outcomes right now. Yeah.
When you're trying to understand the company, for example, you said you have a front end that understand who doesn't like who, what is the processes, and etc. With this type of information, probably people change over time, and there will be a lot of assumptions, etc. How do you deal with this such unstructured information? Do you have interview questions? I guess it's too technical in that sense. Secret sauce.
The data is very unstructured. It comes in on paper sometimes. We deal with it with each customer individually. Some people's data is messier than others. Each org has different rules. For the restaurant group, for example, we're working with a restaurant group that has 500 people, 17 locations, and each location runs independently. Their front of house staff behaves totally differently than their back of house staff. It's just context, right? Like you use ChatGPT. If you're talking to it about your girlfriend and it has no context, it's just gonna be like, you're absolutely right, King. But if you upload a bunch of screenshots, then it might be like, hey, you're kind of fucked up for this. You shouldn't do that anymore. The more context you give it, the better. And so it starts, to get smarter, and then there's just pattern recognition. But you have to keep, refreshing your context on it, or she won't keep it.
Do you need domain knowledge? For example, for a restaurant, probably anyone can say which is the right person at the right moment. But for healthcare, it's not. I can imagine that it's not that easy to say, okay, that's the best person, the best.
Yeah, actually, our restaurant group has a catering group. Whoever's doing the scheduling now, we sit down and they train Holly. So again, just like a new hire, you're not going to hire an engineer on day one and be like, you are the CTO now and you do whatever you want and just start like at Google. You're not just going to start pushing a bunch of changes. They need to train, they need to learn. And so we tell them Holly's pilot phase is not like a typical pilot phase where you're just trialing out the product. It's way more complex than that. And so we call it Holly's onboarding phase. She's onboarding as an employee for the first 2 to 3 months, just depending on how complex their workflows are. So we give them historical schedules, we give them the staff roster, they give them rules, context. The catering company runs different than the restaurants. what's different about it. You have overarching company rules, but then you have rules that are specific to each restaurant, or overarching restaurant rules, or overarching catering rules. Maybe you have specific group for weddings, a specific group for parties and events, or business dinners. Again, all of that is just individual rules and context that we then give to Holly. And so we sit with whoever does the scheduling at each location for each department, and we take all that stuff that goes out of that's in their brain right now, that they use to make these decisions on scheduling, and we give it to Holly. And they review her first schedule and her first couple of changes. We have a human in the loop. But then we start to take them out of the equation, right? And so once they're done with Holly's onboarding phase, then she's generating schedules. She's automatically collecting everybody's availability, making sure that she's tracking their licenses, that they're up to date, pulling people off the schedule if their licenses aren't up to date, taking care of their payroll, PTO requests. Eric says, hey, my kid's sick, I can't come in tomorrow. Holly knows who can work, when, why, where they need to be, at what time, contact them and put them in the slot. Which really, it's like, that part is not, AI. That is like it's Tetris.
That's your product. I mean, what is your model of it?
That's a great question. Monetization of the product varies based on industry, right? So restaurant margins, very bad. Healthcare margins, not great for healthcare systems. We are taking a licensing approach right now per user, or a flat fee with overages. Obviously, if they're using a ton of tokens, that's no good. We don't want a customer to be able to bankrupt us. But we're going in with this is almost like a new category because it's an AI worker, right? It's not just a scheduling platform. Those exist by the dozens. And so we're working with each organization right now and seeing who does their scheduling, trying to estimate how much time it's taking away from them, what they're paying for their current scheduling vendor if they have one, and then just doing like custom quotes. There's no generalized pricing yet. Again, we are, I think we just hit month 3 of having gone live with this product. Yeah.
If you see some barriers, because the healthcare is quite a regulated field and area, do you see any barriers from government or regulations that you're facing, and how do you overcome them?
So sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Barriers?
Yes, some barriers, because healthcare is quite a regulated field. So do you see any barriers because it's a regulated field, and there's some kind of restrictions?
No.
Questions?
No, that's why we don't touch any patient scheduling right now, and no patient data. We are SOC 2 compliant. We're not required to be HIPAA compliant. And the truth is that like in healthcare, a lot of times they don't even have a dedicated administrator. It's a clinician. Like we're working with New York Presbyterian, Cornell Cardiology. And so we're finding that is the case a lot in healthcare. That changes a little bit when you're talking about scheduling for OR, which is like why we are benchmarking of where we want to be in terms of accuracy before we work with OR. But no, not a lot of regulation on the scheduling and workforce management piece, which is why we went for that first. We have larger visions of other areas that we'd like to entrench ourselves into, but I think picking areas that are the least regulated to begin with is always an easier bet. Yeah.
Did you train your own model, or is like for?
We use Claude, and so I mean, yes, technically it is a wrapper, but the optimizer we developed natively.
Your own, like, I guess, like, you wanted to operate basically.
Yes, so we train it. Yeah, we have specific Holly prompts in our own evals that we write. We use Claude on the front end to talk with the people and help make some of these decisions, but the optimizer logic in the back end is what makes the most important decisions. Yeah.
I'm curious, when you're trying to expand into a new setting, etc., when you're running your go-to-market strategies and testing, etc., how much of it was founder-led? How much of it is advertisement, etc.?
No advertisement. We don't do any. Well, now it's not fully founder-led because I brought Sammy on last month. But no, I mean, everything in our pipeline right now is from warm introductions from people in our network. No advertising. Like, you should not be spending money, unless you're a consumer, you should not be spending money on ads, especially for B2B. Your first couple of sales need to be founder-led sales. And so we had already done 2 or 3 enterprise deals, contracts signed, ready to go before I brought on Sammy, because there's a playbook and there's a pipeline, and I can give that to her. I would not have brought Sammy on if we had not done a single sale, no pipeline, no playbook, and been like, well, figure out how to take this to market. You as the founder need to know how to take it to market. and how to take it to market and how to talk to these customers. Because you need to validate if it's even a problem. So, and you should always be talking to your customers, always. There is not ever a point in which you should still be the founder of your company, I don't care if it's public, and not talk to your customers. And there are lots of good examples of people who do that, like Dylan from Figma. Shout out. Auto upgraded us the other day from like the $15 per month per person subscription to $55 per month per person subscription. And I was like, this is a lot of fucking money for a startup. I want to figure out how to downgrade. Like, I don't know why you even upgraded me to this. And like, I need help. And they're like, no, sorry, you already paid for this and we're not going to refund it. We can't help you, but we'll make sure next year we'll walk you through how to downgrade. So I CC'd Dylan from Figma and I was like, is this what happens when you become a public company? You just say, fuck the startups, you don't care about them anymore? And then the Figma team was like, hey, we're so sorry that happened. We're going to refund you. And I was like, hell yeah. Yeah.
I have a question that is different from how much are you in this company in terms of people?
People that are in the
Yeah, I know the question I'm thinking. There are 8 of us here and like 10. No, there's more than that. Yeah, there's more. We have more employees than that. Yeah, it's really bad that I don't know this answer. I think 15. We have the first product, like I said, it's profitable. We siloed it off. I basically hired a mini founder to be running it. And so I let her have free reign for as long as it's profitable. And she has a secondhand person, and then they have a team of contractors based out of South Africa. So I think 15 in total. But we had to be really hands-off with the first business we built in order to totally focus on this one. So it's a privilege to be able to do that. It's not typical startup.
You want every person that you have on the team, person and profession, and you think that's needed to have success?
Yes, like undoubtedly. I have hired people before that I was like, I fucking hate you. And let me just tell you, it doesn't matter how smart they are, that feeling does not go away. So the people that you hire, you should feel comfortable with crying in front of. You will at some point, probably. You should feel comfortable going and getting a beer with. You should feel comfortable calling at 1 a.m. You should feel comfortable. You should be excited to celebrate something with them and be like, yeah, we did it. And if you don't get that feeling when you're interviewing someone, do not hire them. I'm so serious, do not hire them. I've ignored that signal several times and it has never ended up well.
How do you prevent patient information leaking into your system if the doctor or whatever is using Holly and is writing something about a patient and potential condition?
That just wouldn't happen. It won't happen. Holly is for staff members, right? So the admins that do the scheduling, they have their own dashboard. It looks like ChatGPT or Claude, and it pulls up the schedule and whatever. The staff members on iMessage or SMS or WhatsApp, and Holly just says, hey, your schedule's been published for the next 2 weeks. Here, take a look. They can open up the web link. It integrates with their calendar, so iCal, GooCal, whatever. And then if they need PTO, or they're like, hey, I have a wedding coming up, they text Holly, or they're like, hey, I'm gonna have to swap on-call weeks. They're not texting Holly anything about the patients. They are texting Holly other ludicrous things. We had a chief resident be like, if Ethan doesn't pick up my shift next week, I'm gonna kill him. Can you help me schedule a homicide? And we're like, holy shit. And she's like, no problem. No, email by far. Email is crazy. It is the most time consuming. Like I probably answer somewhere between 50 and 100 emails a day. And I probably get somewhere between 400 and 700. Outbound investors, potential customers, lots of people that want to work for you that, are working at Burlington Coat Factory right now and doing a UX UI course that they bought for $7.99. Like crazy shit. You get tons of inbound. And one of the things I found too is after you raise money, no one tells you this. This is your biggest fucking job. After you raise money, it's not building your product, it's not making your customers happy, it's not hiring the best people. It is defending that capital. Because as soon as you raise money, everyone wants it. Lawyers want it, employees want it, grifters want it, advisors want it, consultants want it, your customers want to spend it. And that's your most precious resource. You have no idea when you're gonna get more of it back, but they are gonna go after it. So I would say most of my day spent on email, syncing with the team, especially as the team grows. Hiring is very time consuming. We're always hiring. That takes up a fuck ton of time. and then just trying to make sure that you are, balancing every part of it. As the founder, there should not be a part in which you don't touch. Nothing should be siloed, because like I said, you never know with talent. You could make a mishire, people leave all the time, personal circumstances come up. You can't have anyone be irreplaceable. So you should know what they're touching at all times. And I'm not saying micromanage them, but you should know what they are working on and why.
Do you have someone that inspires you that you really come to?
Dead or alive? Dead, Hedy Lamarr, if you guys know who she is, she's an actress. She was an actress, a very prominent Hollywood movie actress, also participated in an adult film and was pretty discriminated against for that. Very beautiful. She's one of the original co-inventors of Bluetooth. Very smart. I think she was divorced like 6 or 7 times, so a little troubled, as geniuses always are. But I think that her contributions to STEM and women in STEM were incredible. And then alive, Sandy Lerner, who I love to talk about, she started Cisco with her husband. And this is in the late 70s, early 80s, building network security as a woman. And her and her husband went through a pretty bad divorce. They asked her to leave Cisco. And I can't remember if it was her husband or someone on their board that said that she should stick to what women know. And so she left. And within 3 years, she built Urban Decay, which is a multi-billion-dollar beauty brand. And she said, fuck you. And then they asked her to come back and help with some things at Cisco, and she was like, no. And then she sold Urban Decay, and now she runs she's actually a little crazy. She's running a sustainable meat farm and horses out of Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk to her?
No, but I would love to. I would love to. I've cold emailed her before, but she didn't answer. Anyone prominent, you can probably bet that I've cold emailed them. What's up?
If my understanding is correct, you come from like a corporate background from IBM.
A what background?
You weren't always a founder, right?
No, I've always had businesses.
Okay.
I was not corporate for very long, maybe like a year and a half. I was on the nursing side, and then I worked in tech.
So what was the change in your lifestyle as well as mindset, perhaps before Poly and these venture of yours?
Were you here at the beginning? Oh, you missed the founder story. That's a long one. I'll let someone else catch you up. But I would say just the mindset on it was like, I felt compelled to do this. And it was after I had done all this research, I was like, will someone else do this? Maybe. Do I think they'll do it correctly? No. And with the right intentions, no. Do I think I could do this? Maybe. Do I feel like I have to? Yes. And so this is my problem. Like, I joke a lot about other startups that we could work on, other problems we could work on, but the truth is that I will keep working on this. Even if, God forbid, something happens to this company, I'll just spin it up again and just keep trying to solve this problem of building healthcare infrastructure. The Holly name, though, is funny. Our first product, ShiftOS, my sister was our first hire. She's 10 years younger than me. She's the only child that got a full ride scholarship. And we're like, it'd be great to have you on full time. So she called my dad and she was like, I'm dropping out of school and I'm gonna work for Autumn. And he called me and was like, what the fuck? And I was like, whoa, that was my bad. And she ended up getting an offer from another startup and then tried to arbitrage me on matching the salary. And I was like, I do not negotiate with terrorists. So she left, and she was there for a couple of months. It was an Excel-backed startup here in SF. She took their founding team and started her own company. And so we named this product after her, Holly, because she's trapped within the confines of the cloud. She can never leave. Yeah.
You said that you started with the sector, with the enlisted. So what do you want to solve next to make the healthcare revolution happen? So what are the sector, the worst pain points, problems that you want to address?
I think for healthcare specifically, like healthcare obviously is the most regulated industry, but we picked a part that's not super regulated, right? I think next step for us in healthcare, or just generally, is going to be payroll. Right now, we're integrating with payroll providers. That's a bitch. They don't want you to do it. I think owning payroll makes a lot of sense, and going towards general intelligence for workforce management. And then I think you've got a lot of things that you can go into there, like the supply chain and maintenance. If you're scheduling all of the healthcare providers at a hospital, it just makes sense then to schedule the maintenance people and take care of the contract orders and compliance when it comes to like Joint Commission. And so there's a ton on our roadmap, but we're prioritizing based off of what we can build the fastest, where we can increase scope with our current customers. With restaurants, I'm not gonna fuck around with them. I'm not trying to integrate with their POS and supply ordering and inventory, but it might end up becoming that way just depending on how fast AI progresses. Yeah.
A question back to the, so you said before, was that for every deployment, Poly gets smarter.
Yeah.
The data stays there where it is, basically, in the infrastructure of the client, right? What does it mean that it gets smarter? Like you train on their data?
Yeah, so Holly trains on their data. She learns more rules, she learns more context, she gets more permissions, basically. And the fewer mistakes she's making, like each month that we're cycling through, the more that we can say, hey, we don't need a human in the loop for this. The trust builds. And she learns things along the way, because you can sit with someone and do onboarding, right? You're probably gonna onboard employees, but you'll certainly miss stuff. It just happens, right? You can't always transfer everything out of the brain. And then as Holly gets corrected, right, then we fine tune her and make sure that she doesn't make those same mistakes. And sometimes that can be cross customer. So if we see her making a mistake with certain types of edge cases for hospitality when it comes to call offs, that's a fix that we can then institute with our healthcare customers and call offs.
To fine tune it, the central knowledge, let's say, you fine tune it yourself, or does it learn from the data at the edge, and then that knowledge gets transferred? I'm just trying to understand from a compliance perspective, which for me is quite. So basically, if I have 3 hospitals, A, B, and C.
Okay.
And they train on the data or rest, whatever it is. And my model, so Poly, usually, I'm not sure if the compliance, if like it's compliant to learn from data from us and transfer the knowledge to us from the other way around. So I was just curious about all this technical stuff. I'm not sure if it was clear.
Excuse by the question. Justin?
Yeah, so generally the data that we're using at the moment is like general workflow improvements that we can make. So again, fast. We're exploring more and more like at the organization level, like how people want to interact with her, what's like okay in a specific organization. So that stays with them. But yeah, it's like more just general workflow.
Yeah, it's good. It's like ChatGPT, right, or whatever. You say, do you want us to train on your data? Yes or no? And you give it to them. And you say no.
They agree. No, they agree to that up front.
Do you have some tips for like some stories? You mentioned article doctors, like so many people, like give some recommendation on how to structure the message and everything.
I've done crazy shit to get people to answer stuff. I was chasing this Walgreens deal, and I saw that they were getting bought by private equity. And so I figured out who was buying them at private equity. I looked up everybody, and then I found a guy that was like similar age to me. And I looked up all of his socials, found his Spotify, went through his music taste, built him a playlist, pulled his phone number off, and sent him the playlist. And was like, we both have great music taste, like let's chat. He was like, what the fuck is this? And I cold called him. And then I got a meeting with him, and it was great. And then we started, building a relationship there. And I cold outreached Mark Cuban so that we could partner ShiftRx with Cost Drugs Plus. Mark Cuban answers emails like that. Like he is super quick on answering emails. Some people really don't like cold outreach, but what I would say about cold outreach is that you should never do it in mass. It's never fucking worth it. And we get tons of cold outreach emails. I don't that are just en masse. You can tell it's a template. Like I'm not gonna answer that. But if I find you, and I figure out that you're in North Beach and you're from Italy, and I say, hey, Eric, so awesome to see you're building a company here in North Beach and that you're from Italy. I went to Italy last summer. One of my favorite places I visited was this place. Have you ever been there? I love this Italian dish. Here's some accomplishments you did that I thought were really interesting. Here's things that I've worked on. I would love an opportunity to meet you. you are way more likely to answer that. Also, people love to be complimented. So if you really want to talk to them, even if you don't think they're that awesome, but they can be helpful, then lie your ass off, right? Like, I think it's so awesome that you published a paper about deoxidization of Cheez-Its. It's just incredible that you bioengineered those for Americans and that they will never expire. How did you do that?
Yeah.
So just being super personal, just like conversations that you're having in person, right? Like when you talk to someone, you ask them questions, you seem interested. You don't say shit like, so what's keeping you up at night? Boring. Don't be fucking boring. I have 3 core rules at this company. Everyone reads my manifesto when they start. And it's do not be boring, do not be lazy, and do not be stupid. And if you're not doing any 3 of those things, then you're likely putting an effort to what you're doing.
That's like 2, 3 questions, and then I think we can wrap it up.
It's just didn't have the technical chops. And we were like, this is actually a really fucking hard problem to solve. Scheduling is so complex. Like it's easy to reduce it down to, it's an AI scheduling agent, but it's the right person at the right time. You talk about the OR, that costs $37 a minute to run, and it might be put together in 20 minutes with 13 providers. And it has to, you can't have an anesthesiologist without a CRNA, without the surgeon, without the scrub techs, the ratio. We needed better talent and people who were willing to give their all on it. And Austin's culture, if I were building a consumer company or a food and beverage company or maybe hardware, I would be in Austin, but it just didn't really make sense for this type of product.
Makes sense. And then like given your growth, I guess you probably like received, I don't know, interest from like different VCs or like other companies maybe interested in like acquiring you. So what was like your decision-making process to decide to kind of like build this new product and try to go for the moonshot like route?
Yeah, so we had an offer actually back in June from a unicorn in a proxy space, and they approached us. We had just started building this scheduling product. So like very early stages, like in Figma, and they wanted to acquire us for triple what we had raised our seed at, and they were offering me CEO of the company, which was crazy. Like this is over $1 billion company. And I wanted board control and founder level equity, or to be paid like a professional CEO with board control, because I felt like this product needed to solve the problems, right? Like, and I didn't want to be beholden to people that I didn't know. It was a management team I didn't know, leadership I didn't know, a board I did not know. And unless I could make the decisions freely that needed to happen, that were in the best interest of the customer, which is these healthcare providers, then I didn't want to do it. But it was tough because it was more money than Leanne and I have ever seen, would have cleared, personally. Yeah, each. I'm really broke, so that sucked. But it was like the principle of it. Like, we just started working on this. We have a Figma demo for it. And they were interested in buying us for that. And so I was like, we got to see where this can go. And that company, in my mind, wasn't making the decisions that needed to be made in favor of the healthcare provider. When you look at these gig work platforms, too, that exist on the nursing side, like tons of them, there was lawsuits against so many of them. There were bait and switching providers on rates, posting a really high hourly rate so a provider would pick it up. They end up not getting paid out that. You had cases where people are listing their houses as home health and needing a home nurse, and nurses showing up and getting sexually assaulted. To me, it was like, I learned my lesson the first time of not wanting to contribute to something that harms patients, and I won't contribute to anything that will harm patients or providers. And if you're harming providers, you're ultimately harming patients.
Do you guys have any questions?
Why do they wanted to acquire you?
That's a great question. I don't know, honestly. They reached out. It was pretty quick. I spent like 12 hours the next day with the CEO at the WeWork. I think he thought a lot of me, which I appreciate, and that I was very driven, and that he could get a good deal on a seed stage founder who's just excited to be CEO of a unicorn and would haul ass to take them to IPO. But trying to take a company that's making $50 million a year to $150 million a year so you can IPO, which is the bare minimum, and you're still at risk of being listed as a penny stock, it's idealistic. And I can also do math. So for the same reasons that he thought I was smart enough to run the company, I was smart enough to say no. But it was flattering nonetheless. This is a quiet group.
The story, I think I have a question because it was quite clear and once again very impressive. So I'm still thinking about the questions. But thank you.
How big do you think this company can be?
Very, very, very large. The problem that we're solving, like I said, it's not unique to healthcare. This is a healthcare company we want to rebuild healthcare infrastructure, but you look at some of the infrastructure that exists in healthcare, it's not unique to healthcare. So like Workday, like our incumbent competitors, right? Workday, UKG, Kronos. Kronos, I think, is a $9 billion company. Workday is like $160 billion. Someone could fact check me on that. These companies are very, very large, so you have to expand outside of healthcare. But the thing is that we figured out we could do the scheduling, we could do it correctly in healthcare. We are doing it in restaurants. We're talking to public safety. It doesn't need to be done in English. So it doesn't need to just be, it's any shift-based labor force that we can handle scheduling for, and we can handle it in any country. My co-founder and I are actually going to Japan at the end of next month. We've been talking to some people about a Japanese expansion, which is exciting. And I think it doesn't stop there, right? Like, I'm not gonna stop until we solve these problems. And that is just rebuilding the entirety of healthcare infrastructure. And I think if you can do it in the US, then you can do it anywhere. Yeah.
They approach you, so how do you think they got to know about you? Because you made a lot of noise on social media, PR.
No, I think they got to know us through a friend, a contact that I had that was a Series A startup. And yeah, he was really interested in what we were building. They were a gig work platform for nursing that had, there's a whole bunch of them that have now pivoted into software and trying to do this scheduling thing. But they're now, 7 to 10 years old. They're not super exciting to work at. Their valuations were way blown up during COVID, and their revenue went down. This is like a last-ditch effort for them. You've got bureaucracy. By the time you're 10 years old, you're slow. You've got bureaucracy. Your technology is dated. And so, like, they were really looking for a refresh, I think. But yeah, how they found me, I think, was through a friend. And then we just spent some time together. And I'm still friends with the founder that made the offer. And he's just always trying to invest, which is a good signal.
Could you just elaborate on scheduling?
On scheduling?
Yeah.
What elaborate how?
In terms of restaurant, in terms of like healthcare, how are they correlated for like deep diving into that?
So the way that scheduling is being done is that they are using legacy vendors right now. So Kronos, UKG, Qgenda, or they're using Excel sheets or paper. A lot of people, you would be shocked to find out, Amazon DSP, all these Amazon drivers, they're scheduled manually on Excel sheets. And so that is how, what goes into scheduling too is very complex, right? So right person, right time, right licenses, time tracking, if you're hourly, if you're salary, if it's a holiday, union versus non-union. There are so many rules that go into that. And then you have interpersonal dynamics, right? So if you're someone that's making the schedule for this, like let's say you're scheduling all of these people. I might be a really great manager and a great boss, but I'm kind of a bitch. And Eric is new and he's very sensitive. And you don't want us to work together because it's just gonna be a whole fucking thing. How do you tell software that? Historically, you've not been able to tell software that. So the way that we have created the Holly agent is that, we've got an optimizer in the back end that makes sure it's the right person going at the right time, right place. But you talk to Holly and you train her like you would a coworker. You give her all that context that lives in her brain. So when we're onboarding customers, sometimes we're pulling them off a legacy system, and then sometimes we're pulling them from paper sheets, Excel sheets, giving her historical staffing patterns, historical schedules, the staff roster, any rules that might be unique to your organization or your department or to people. And because of AI and large language models, you can talk to them through NLP, like natural language processing, have a conversation just like you would with a person. She can understand that and then apply that in her logic when she's making scheduling and staffing decisions.
Did you try, like, before getting into the market, did you have some pilot projects?
No, but we were running a staffing business, which is a lot of scheduling.
How are you thinking about talent? What do you look for?
People that cold DM me on X. I have 2 people in the room that have done that. Talent is so hard to find. If you're gonna be a founder, the first universal truth that you need to accept is that nobody gives a shit about your mission or your product the way that you will. They might care a lot, but they're not gonna care like you will. The other thing about talent is that the Silicon Valley loves to have their heuristics of find the kids that went to Stanford, maybe they don't finish, that's even better. Find the people who are former founders, find the people who worked at Stripe or Palantir. But usually as a seed stage founder, to burst your bubble, you're not going to be able to afford them. And when I look for great talent, it's people who ask really good questions, who are curious during the interview process, who care about your founder story, right? Because especially like pre-seed through Series A, the founders are the only people who are not replaceable. Everyone else is replaceable. That is just the truth, right? And they should find comfort in that, because you shouldn't have someone that is so irreplaceable in those stages that the company would die, other than yourself. And so you find people who care about your personal mission, why you're doing it, like one of your motivating factors. For me, it's not money, which makes me very hard to work with, as I'm sure my potential acquirer would say. You find alignment on that, and you find people who are smart and that like working on really complex problems. Like you don't want someone who gets faced with adversity or a problem and is like, I can't figure this out now. I'm just crippled. Those are the people that during the zombie apocalypse, they just walk out and say, take me, right? You want the people who are like surviving 7 years later. Like they have to have that scrappy mentality, especially pre-seed through seed and Series A. And you are going to make so many mishires. I have fired people, even recently, I fired someone after 4 days. 3 days? 4. Thanks, Trey. 4 days. So sometimes you make a mishire. As soon as you know you made a mishire, they got to go, because it will weigh down the team. If you're hiring really great people, they want to work with other really great people. So you cannot afford to have someone who's not really great, because people will question your leadership ability. If you're not able to get rid of people who are weighing you down very quickly, then they'll be like, what are they doing here? No, I knew. The team knew too. But they're here. I knew.
Also, like here in Silicon Valley, the market is very fluid, like very liquid. Typically, like in Europe, when you hire someone, it's a bit difficult then to fire them. So
it is.
It's like a great advantage of like staying here if you're building a company.
Finding talent is very hard. And in the Bay, it is extremely fucking competitive. It is so competitive. Like we are a 3-year-old company. We don't have the best, we don't have a tier 1 investor. We don't have we're not Lovable, we're not Cursor, we're not Corgi. So you have to be scrappy, and you have to pitch people, and you have to think outside of the box, and you have to give them a why reason to just talk to you in the beginning, and then you have to give them the why reason of why they should want to work for you or work with you on this mission, right? That's like so much bigger than yourselves. And the line I love to use is like, look, at the end of your life, you can look back on what you did and you can have a lot of money, but are you going to be like, holy shit, I just made crazy impact? And that's what I feel we're doing here. And so I ask people, I'm like, at the end, do you want to look back and be like, I worked on that? That's pretty fucking awesome. But not everybody has vision. I can't give it to you. This is the only guy laughing at my jokes. No, they're supposed to be. They're jokes. Oh my God, guys.
What do you think the shift happened from you, given your background, being driven by money to being driven by impact? Is it when you had that experience with nursing and how fucked up it was?
No, I didn't give a shit. I went to IBM and I was just like, let me make a lot of money. It's when my mom got diagnosed with brain cancer. I had made decisions at IBM that, I'm certainly not proud of now, but just, would negatively impact patient lives or make delays for patients to get information. And I didn't think twice about it. I just wanted to get as many done, as many updates, as many renewals done as possible. And I was, 25, and I had grown up with a very comfortable lifestyle and then had nothing. And so now I'm 25, I'm clearing almost $500,000 a year, which was great. And I was just excited about that. And then someone gets sick, and I realized when my mom got sick, like, she's not just a patient, she's not a number, there's an entire ecosystem behind that. And I think a great example of that is the OnlyFans founder. If you guys are familiar with him, the CEO and founder of OnlyFans, he just recently passed away and is childhood best friends with one of my close friends and entrepreneurs from Austin. He found out that he had colon cancer, and this man is crazy rich and sunk a bunch of money into every experimental research therapy that he could find. He bought multiple healthcare systems, and it did not save him. And he leaves behind 4 kids under the age of 12 and a wife. And that is tough, right? Like you might be able to have all of the money, but it's not going to help you. And so like for me, It's not about the money, how much money I can make. I already found out that that doesn't help, right? What helped was having connections. And if I didn't have those connections, I don't think my mom would be with us today. Like the day after she was diagnosed, we had her airlifted and sent to Miami the next day with the best neuro-oncology surgeon in the world. And so this impact that we're trying to drive is for you guys and us and your parents and your siblings. If you have kids, if you have cousins, nieces, nephews, it won't matter how much money that you have when they get sick if there's nobody that cares on the other side of that. And sometimes it's not that they don't care, but it's that they don't have the bandwidth to. So
How much did you raise?
almost 7 million for our seed.
But you started with this healthcare and workforce management.
Yeah.
Now pays for everything. Workforce.
Yeah. We've gone broader. Like I said, it's April, right? We launched this product in January. And we are already working with healthcare systems, doctors, and restaurant groups. We're going broader. But that money gets funneled back into the company. We raise larger rounds, we get access to better talent, and we continue fixing healthcare infrastructure. So just because a company is selling to more ICPs than what they're most focused on doesn't distract from the mission. So it's like, it's a win-win if we are able to fix all of these workforce management problems in general industries. We can take another shot on goal. Like you look at Amazon, right? They have Whole Foods, they have a pharmacy, they have One Medical, they have AWS, they've got lots of products. Google has lots of products. Cisco has lots of products. And so you can be a company whose mission and North Star is to fix one thing, but you have to take a lot of shots on goal and make a lot of, it's gonna take a lot of money to fix healthcare infrastructure.
Do you know the company, Sana?
I do not.
How are you thinking about competition? Is someone doing something in your space? Not like, don't think about the work days, like the big guys.
Right.
The small guys who are trying to do what you do.
I don't think of them. They don't do what I do. They're motivated by the wrong things. And eventually that plays out. There are 2 competitors that have spun up. One of them we almost acqui-hired, and then they just pivoted to compete with us, which I love. And no, I'm serious, I do love it. Like if someone else solves the problem, then great. Like I want the problem solved, right? So if I inspired that, like awesome. And another competitor was also almost a hire, and then they decided to start a new company and compete against us. Yeah.
You're spanning so many verticals. What is the most difficult part of interviewing your customers and ICPs?
You know, they all have the same problems. Like restaurants, scheduling all these servers and waitstaff and managing their licenses and having them be bilingual and people are on WhatsApp or, you know, whatever. Same exact core problems as healthcare and in public safety and in government and with Amazon delivery drivers. So it's not that hard because, you know, we've built this AI model that just starts to learn. Like Holly's back logic and optimizer works one way, doing the scheduling, doing all these things. It's a general thing. And then her front brain is learning on each context for each unique organization, how they work, how their rules are. So it's really, this company, he said, okay, get this man a contract. The biggest opportunities are your network. Just like leveraging your network, meeting great people, not being super transactional. I also recommend don't burn bridges. Like you are gonna meet some people in Silicon Valley that suck and that are grifters or whatever. You might fire somebody. You might wanna act irrationally or emotionally. Don't do it because you never know where that person's gonna end up. You don't know what's gonna happen. And so you wanna make sure that you maintain as many good relationships that you can leverage later on. And I think our opportunity will be from that. I've made great relationships since we started this company, and I've been able to leverage them for all of our early customers, all of our advisors, and everything compounds. The momentum compounds. But bad things also compound. So you try to minimize the bad things and just rebound as quickly as you can. Oh, sick. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wow, this is so exciting. Jeff Bezos, baby.
Okay, so I think this is like a good time to wrap up. So thank you very much, AJ.
Yeah, thanks for all coming. I can't believe we fit this many people in this space.